Hey everyone, welcome back again. This is the Iconist Podcast. And I'm one of your hosts, Barry 3D. And like always, I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the one that makes the tables rock back and forth and keeps the speakers bumping all night and make you say, turn that racket down. The one and only, my cousin,
DJ Rod C.
DJ Rod C.
Why the neighbors like that? I don't understand. We're back, baby. We're back. Welcome, everyone, to Iconist. Welcome.
Hey. Looking good, doing good. And why we looking good? Because of the one and the only, the other man that's behind the scenes who you don't see. You've seen him on one episode. We got to get him back. The one and only Rod. Who am I talking about?
J Bird Digital Arts.
J Bird Digital Arts. J Bird.
Let's go.
Anything you need done. Templates, overlays, posters, press kits, the whole 9 yards. Any kind of media you need, reach out to J Bird Digital Arts. He'll hook you up. Tell Jay we said hi.
Let's do it.
Be polite. Manners maketh a man. I like that line.
As you close the door. What's about to happen?
Right? On top of that, as we always quickly say, support your comic book stores, and two that support us and we support them is Wow Comics out in Kitchener or Check Swings out in Montreal. Visit either one. Tell Trevor or Wes we said hi. They will say, oh, wow, cool. Thank you. And spread the love. So that's another one. And of course, the Beyond the Balcony podcast with Jimmy England. Back to the Balcony podcast. You can catch me on there a couple of times. You'll see the links in my website. He's on season 6. I keep saying season 2, season 6, going on season 7. If he hasn't started season 7 already, I know I have an episode coming up with him very shortly. So
nice.
Keep an eye out for that. And you can find all this stuff. Oh, wait a minute. Forgot. The guys I roll with all the time besides the Iconist Podcast. That's A Touch of Great Comedy. That's Zolf Ali, Thomas Patrice, Dave Zakalowski. You can find all that I do or I'm a part of on barry3d.com. Now, that's not Barry. It's not B-E. It's B-A-R-R-Y 3D.com. Find tour dates, my blog, links to everything that we do. And also, 2 last points. We have a Patreon page. So remember, go on patreon.com/Iconist Podcast. Help us and we'll help you. We've got stuff on there for everybody. Exclusive videos just for that crowd that signs up for there. So you will enjoy, and polls. Plus, you can also do one thing.
What's that?
Like, subscribe, and share. Let's get those YouTube numbers up. Let's get subscriptions up on our YouTube channel. And of course, you can find this podcast on every streaming service all across. So video goes up on a Tuesday and the audio goes up on streaming podcast services all over on Wednesday, 10 o'clock our time here in Toronto.
Hey.
Yes. Enjoy and chat back. We good. We always hit you up and we hit us up. And Rod, where can we find you?
Listen, as I always say, you can find me on the World Wide Web. I know it's getting really sad, people, but that's all I keep saying. So that's where you can find me. I didn't give you an address, so you can't come to my house just yet. But if you're coming by, bring some sugar. Be a manner maketh the man or the woman. So you can find me on the net on Instagram at Mr. Rod C, as well as you can find me on twitch.tv/DJ Rod C. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have some fun today. We are having a crazy time. So what are we talking about? Barry, let them know who we're talking about today.
Well, on Iconist, the icon is Aztek.
Aztek.
Now, let's get it straight. When we're saying Aztek, we're not talking the Aztek by Pontiac that you drive, that weird-looking SUV/crossover car. It looked kind of funky. I had a friend that liked it. He had it. But no, we're not talking about that Aztek. We're talking about DC Comics Aztek, known as the Ultimate Man.
The Ultimate Man. Yes.
Sounds like a commercial for Old Spice.
Also true.
So we're talking about Aztek, the Ultimate Man. Now this one, we like to bring you little gems that are out there.
Correct.
And the reason that Aztek came to us to mention is because, sometimes I'm always scrolling, because everyone's locked indoors. I'm scrolling around, looking on the internet, finding things to talk about or characters I read about, and said, hey, never talked about this one. Not many people have talked about him. He popped up in my news feed because I was watching Justice League Unlimited. I saw him in the background. I was like, Aztek. No one's really talked about him. Let's jump in. Now, I admit before doing this episode, I didn't know much about Aztek. I never read, when the comic got released originally, I never read it myself. I went back, I was able to find the comic book, and I said, 10 issues, I'll read it. Of course, to know what I'm talking about for the show. Rod jumped on it too, we read it. And cool thing, it was created by, Grant Morrison. Okay, you got thumbs up. Mark Miller, thumbs up. Mark Miller, we've talked about some of his properties before on the show, like Nemesis, RPM, right? And of course, you will know him. The casual fans would know him from the creator of Kingsman, right? That's where Man Is Maketh the Man come from. So Kingsman, Kick-Ass. All right, okay.
Watchmen.
So two guys writing that I like a lot were the creators behind this. And then it was created. I mean, I had some other people that was also in there too, but there were the two big names I noticed. And the other one was Stephen Harris, who created like one of the identities, Uno. So it was called Aztek, the Ultimate Man. Issue number 1 came out in August of 1996. So for once, we're not traveling back way before our time. And I'm like, I'll sit down and read it. Now, that being said, and the expectations that I had reading, I started reading the first couple of pages, and how the lettering was done was a little bit hard for me to focus on. Like, I'm not a big person that's going to say things about lettering, but this time I have to admit, like, how the lettering was like, okay, it didn't really pop out as much as I wanted to. I started reading it, and is the overall concept of the character interesting to me personally? Yes, he is, and this is why we're talking about him. It's how it was executed. Was I a fan of the execution of the book? This is one time I want to say, no, I wasn't. For how the character was supposed to be, and how the story progressed in those 10 issues, it was kind of choppy. It's like they never really followed a uniformed storytelling method, which shocked me with Grant Morrison and Mark Miller both on there. So I was trying to find stuff that maybe something happened behind the scenes that I didn't, we're not privy to at the time. And I still wasn't finding much. So we're talking about it because the character has life. The character, to me, if you went with the original concept of how it was presented, it still works. I'm interested.
Yep.
But somehow, like happens on the, Touch of Comedy, Touch of Gray Matter YouTube, it got derailed. We'll start a subject in 2 sentences. We're on something else. So it's like, it's like shiny object. Oh, okay. Shout out to my boy Winston. Winston will know that joke.
Oh yeah, that's original stuff.
Right? What was your impression,
listen,
Rod?
My impression was quite similar. Like, okay, so right off the bat, this is Aztek, DC property. We're expecting something, familiar. Now, the good thing about it, I'll say this, a nice thing about it, that they started off and maybe issue 2, thinking like TV shows. Issue 2, they brought in a familiar character. So they brought in Kyle Reiner, Green Lantern Kyle Reiner. They brought him in.
Right.
You see a couple of panels where they'll have someone wearing. Later on, you'll see other panels with someone who's wearing wild enough like a Superman shirt. You'll see some hints and stuff like that, giving you the familiarity and letting you understand that this is in the known DC universe. It's not separate or anything like that.
Right.
Letting you know that at least they're starting out, and we have some similar people. You hear the name Luthor. You see the Daily Planet later on, and everything like that. So that was great. Right. The costume is very nice. I will say that very nice. It's very bright and shiny object. Very Aztec type of helmet that you see him wearing. That it looks like an Aztec warrior. That's really what it is. So the premise behind this character, we'll get into it. That you see all that is looking good, but then like what Barry is saying, the first few issues, you're starting to see the writing and the flow of it wasn't as smoothly as I kind of expected. I'm reading, and I'm like, okay. And then it seemed to like jump to different areas a little bit too fast. or are you just like, how did we get here? You know, it wasn't like the typical, at least you left from one particular scene. Something was said that made it seem like, okay, I'm over here. All of a sudden, I'm over here. Like, wait, let me go back. Did I miss where he was before and how did he jump over here? So the writing was not as smooth as you know, as I would have liked. And I just kept on, of course, definitely. It's 10 issues. And
Mm,
let's see what we can find out and see if it's going to, have a better concept later on. But like Barry said, we were talking before we got on that maybe there's stuff in the background that we weren't privy on that made it a little bit hard for, the two expected, geniuses who are running
right,
that we're expecting to see it. We're expecting something a little different. But I mean, but I read Fruit and everything like that. So
right.
we'll get a little bit more into it, but I mean that was my first impression, just seeing it from the initial concept of it. It was
Yeah, it was too many
and
lanes going on. So look, I'll get into
yeah.
it, right? So as I said, comic came out in August of 1996. That's when issue came out. Number 1 came out, and he was known as Aztek, the Ultimate Man, as I said before. Right at one point, he does join the Justice League of America in Volume 5, issue number 20. You see him in 2017, and it goes on. So he's there for a while. He comes back. Like they try and bring the character back. So introduction of this character, he comes into what's Vanity City. So Vanity City now is a city within a world within the DC universe. He's there. He comes pretty much off a bus with a bag. You see him kind of with the costume. The costume's talking to him. So there's voices. So you can tell that it's like a smart kind of armor he's wearing, something like Armor Man and you figure it's artificial intelligence, and it gets a little bit more into it than that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's testing out the costume. He's like, oh, this is what they've tested me out. I've never been in a city before. So this character is what you call, to me, blank slate.
Complete blank slate.
Right. Because from the point you realize that, so his real name is Uno, UNO, right? Yeah. Not the game Uno, but yeah, same spelling, right? Get the cards.
Redirection.
So Uno was raised as a child in the secret society, the Q Society, born, raised, trained in ways to fight, everything like that. But he's never had true
interaction, any social interaction. Yes.
Right. Everything was, you get up, you train, you learn this martial arts style, you learn this martial arts style, you learn this technique, you learn how to use your costume and train top to end to be like an ultimate warrior, thinking differently. And that I liked. I liked that aspect a lot. Like not every situation for him was solved by punching somebody in the face. Granted. Yeah. When he gets there, he checks out the costume. He tested out in the city, says, oh, okay, getting used to, kind of urban use of my costume in a city instead of a simulator. So we realize that this is the first time he's been in a city. And I'm like, okay, nice. Puts the costume in, and he's there and he's trying to figure out, he's got no money.
Right.
No food. He's like on a pilgrimage. Like, that's it. The costume, here's a set of clothes on your back, literally,
Salut, mon gars.
Bye-bye. Bye, mon cowboy. Okay, so he's off. He gets there. He's walking around and he's overwhelmed with the city. As big as Vanity City is, he still feels a little bit claustrophobic. So understand, this is someone coming from the outside. You're standing outside of the city on a border, you're going to look at the city and go, oh man, it's huge. But when you get in the city, the buildings are, of course, close together. Houses are not 20 miles apart from each other. A house beside a house, a building beside a building, a bank beside a restaurant, so forth. So he gets off smack downtown. So at the same time, I understand what that phrase of, for as big as the city is, I still feel claustrophobic. Right? He was born in a secret society where he walked out his front door and all he saw was mountains.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You walk outside, you're in the great outdoors, where that Q Society was held up in the Andes Mountains. So he gets there, and I understand the feeling that sets the tone for me. It sets what the character is going to be at that point.
Right. He
goes and he's like, well, I'm hungry. I want to get something to eat. He gets in line. He didn't realize he cut in line. People are like, hey, what are you doing? Okay. He waits his turn. Now he apologizes. He's not aggressive in any way. He's really like a monk, like Shaolin monk. That's the mentality you have to take. It's like, so sorry. Good. Let me go back. Didn't mean to upset anybody. And people are still mouthing off at him. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's not aggressive that way. So you see his demeanor. He gets to the counter and it's like, oh, I'd like to have something to eat. It's like, okay, how much money you got? Money? Huh. Heard about money. Don't have it.
Right. You see, and right there, when I saw that part, I'm like, this is where I have a disconnect with, not saying with him,
Mm.
but the Q society. You're now training someone from birth, from a childhood, to be your warrior, your avatar in that regard. But you're teaching him to be a smart. You'll find out later. He's a very smart individual. As we were
Yes.
saying, he's a smart. He has a good intellect. He's smart. He's basically have that detective type of mindset. So he's trying to solve issues and situations. Great, no problem. But you couldn't teach your boy any social skills. You couldn't even tell him about money, or you even when you put a bag on his back with 3 pairs of shoes and a 2 pair of pants and whatever the case may be. No one thought to give this man at least, give him a little a five note, give him a little $500. Listen, you got to stretch as much as possible. Maybe we'll get you in another week. Kind of at least give him something. No, that to me was wrong in the sense that are you training someone to be someone successful, or are you literally just taking a person, pick him up and drop in the middle to fend for yourself? So what are you trying to represent? What type of warrior? Because at this time, we'll get to the point we made the connection to the Justice League of America, to the Justice League and everything like that. So you're going from a superhero type of mindset. But from this standpoint, this is not a superhero.
No.
This is just an individual who's been trained basically as a warrior. That's it. So
right.
you sent the warrior out into the Wild West, in the Wild World, Vanity City, and just left him like that? And we'll get to that. I mean, you'll see hopefully we'll come back to the part when you hear the Q Society. It's basically a big organization. So you have you have. It's not like it's. Although a key the thing is Barry's saying a monk, but I never thought it from that aspect. His mindset may be a monk, but the facilities and the building that the organization, that society he's coming from,
right,
has bucky ducats. Many ducats.
Ducats.
Buku ducats is basically, let's go back to one of our old shows. This is basic Cobra. How do we always ask? How did Cobra able to have, able to make these things? You don't see nothing, but we know Zoltan and Xantar, they making money for them in the back end. But they're an organization that knows to understand money. You're a society, key society, and you just didn't think to give your man money?
A credit card?
I'm sorry,
ATM card?
Going off.
Cashier check?
Listen, just tell me, meet me at this corner every week, and I'll give you an envelope in your pocket. Even if you did that, you didn't even do that. The poor guy's out here starving. Sorry, I apologize.
No. That was no. Have your rant, man. Most of the time, people always hear my voice. I'm glad. Have your rant. Don't roll it back. So this is what gets me. I'm with you because he gets out there. Right now, keep in mind when I say it's a secret society, it's a secret society, but they use advanced technology because he had VR training at this base. So even though he was trained as a warrior monk, they're the ones that sent him to Vanity City. Vanity City seems to have this dark cloud of oppression over it. They try to set it up that they say Vanity City is actually worse than Gotham. Wow. Keep in mind.
Very, go on. Yeah.
Gotham City is bad. Even Batman says Gotham City at night is bad. If you out at night in Gotham, I'm sorry. I can't be everywhere. So they send him there. And you're right. They didn't send him with any resources. It was
just a helmet, and a bag in the back. In the back of the bag.
And that's it. So as a secret, and you'll see why I'm a little bit off on the secret society. It's not a fact they're a secret society living in caves. They live in a heavily techno advanced facility.
Exactly.
Because when he's out there and he has his first encounter, they do a flashback and you see the guys of the Q Society all sitting in there in their base with big screen monitors, a high-tech desk, computers everywhere. And and I'm thinking, you didn't even give this man a cashier check.
Nothing.
You figured you would have done some things and they said go to Vanity City. And the reason of his whole aspect is he's supposed to be out there to fight the shadow god. He's been, given this helmet. And out of this 10-issue series, you only really find out, I think in issue 6, about his background with this
ish. Yes.
Ish.
It's Yeah, it's like actually it's episode like what is this? This is 5 and 6.
Yeah,
So
5 and 6. Thank you.
five. I'm 5 and 6 if I remember as well too. But it's so the whole connection with him is that they're more or less this Q society. So you know what, Uno, he's this warrior born and bred to be a warrior for them. It's an Aztec type of society from, centuries old. So this helmet was basically, was there to, I mean, the first warrior to use it defeated the shadow god, um, centuries ago. That god went into, like, left this mortal plane and said he will return. So the Q society is building warriors every century to have someone to defeat and prepare in preparation for the return of the shadow god.
Right.
What?
Exactly.
You now have all this going and you can't take care of your god. I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay, so you can tell this was a pain point for us, right? So this is that's
Sorry,
a
we
pain
say that
point.
out loud.
So
Sorry.
I mean, I love secret societies. I love reading about that stuff. So that worked for me. But when I saw how they sent him out there without any preparation, so he gets in there, then it flashes back to this criminal. So it seems that the Vanity City has been overrun by these criminals. This criminal boss is now blackmailing this guy who used to be a super villain by kidnapping his daughter, saying, "Hey, we need you to go and do this heist for you to get your daughter back." Guy's like, "Okay, fine." He shows up at this bank, or trying to rob it, saying he's gonna kill everybody. Usual spiel. Aztek, and then this other guy walks in there named Bloodthirsty.
Right.
Or Blood Type.
Blood type. Yeah, blood type.
That's his name. Blood Type. So Blood Type shows up. So a brand new villain, and I'm like, okay, we're seeing who's probably his reoccurring villain in the series, and I'm like, I'll fall for that. So Blood Type comes in there, says, "Hey man, I'm the hero here." And Blood Type, picture him, he's like the Punisher with armor.
Yep.
Right? Because he starts shooting down the villain. Big fight starting to break out. Uno goes, changes into his Aztec costume, comes back out, says, "Hey, you know what?" And you can still see he's still got that frame of mind of saying there's no need to go ham on the whole situation like that and just start blowing people. There's civilians around. Let's talk about it. Let's go back. And now Blood Type sees Aztek, says, "Oh, you're teamed up with him," and starts shooting at him. So, Aztek does not fight back. Now, keep in mind, I'm saying Aztek, but in issue 1, he does not have a name yet. He doesn't have a superhero name. So we're just going by the name that's on the book before he takes on the name Aztek. So he says, "Okay, no, I'm not with him. I just said we can talk about it peacefully because there's lots of civilians around." Blood Type turns around, knocks down Aztek. The other guy says, "Okay, I give up. You know what? I stop. There's no need to go any further." The villain, he actually gives up. Blood Type turns around and Aztek's like, "Oh, he's given up. Okay, we're good. We can just stop all this mindless violence." Aztek, Blood Type turns around, punches Aztek, sucker punches him, jumps over and says, "You know why they call me Blood Type? Because it's the last thing I asked for before I do this. What's your blood type?" What? And he shoots the villain on the ground. Of course, now Aztek and Blood Type kind of get into a fight. Aztek is trying to save the villain because he's been shot. The villain realizes that it's fatal. So he goes, "I need you to save my daughter. She's being held at this tower here in Vanity City. You got to save her." Then Blood Type gets in there and tries to go on him again, puts up a shield. An explosion happens. Oh, Blood Type, he doesn't put up a shield. Blood Type pulls out
a cannon.
Like a rocket launcher. And I'm like, "Are you serious, man?" Pulls out a rocket launcher and says, "Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback here, and this is bugging me." Pulls out a rocket launcher. Aztek puts up a shield. And sure enough, when everything's said and done, it causes, collateral damage.
Right.
Huge collateral damage. People die. People are maimed. People are being rushed to the hospital. So at this point, Aztek turns around and looks at the guy and he goes, "Look, I'm Dr. So-and-so. You got to save my daughter. This is what my real..." So the villain was really a doctor that was on his way to start work at the hospital in town the next day.
Right.
So Uno takes his identity.
That was the most gullish thing I saw, like thinking, I got off this bus. I'm just walking. I ain't got no food. I don't know how I'm going to work into society. I got no credential. I got no paperwork, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm about to die. I'm about to die. My name is Kurt. Kurt. Just say right now, Kurt. My name is Kurt. I'm a daughter. And she's over here. I'm gonna start work tomorrow at this hospital. I'm a doctor. Really? Oh, well, you're fatal. Sorry about you, Kurt. Do the fingers over the eyes kind of thing.
Right.
I just document all the notes. Okay, let me just make sure his name is Kurt. He has a daughter. Works in the hospital. He's a doctor. Good. I'm good.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he said. He's like, oh, he's going to start. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this body and hide this body, and I'm going to take this guy's identity, because even when he was asking about, money, the girl's like, well, you have no paperwork, no ID, no social insurance number, you got nothing. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, I need these things. This guy's dying. You know what? I'm going to take this doctor's identity because he has an apartment already. He's got a job, so he'll get money. And he really thinks that out. So up to now, so then I don't know what he did with the original doctor's body.
Thank you. This is where I'm lost in certain things like that. Like, did his body, because exactly my thoughts were the same way. I'm like thinking, you took over the personality. The person's name is Kurt Falconer.
Yes.
Every time I see it, I keep thinking Falcone. I'm like, it's so close, but I just I'm thinking Falcone. But Falconer, and he's like, okay, so what are you doing? Like, yeah, they say, yeah, listen, my name is Curtis Falconer. I'm a doctor supposed to start working at St. Bartholomew's today. I didn't want to do this. It's a setup. What? So he took the guy's body. There's nothing else afterwards. Well, you know what? Here's the scenario.
Uh-huh.
Because the one I'm just watching it at the same time, but there was no backtrack to confirm there was a big explosion right after he got that information.
Yes.
So this is where I'm with you. Was the body in there, or wasn't the body in there? Did he take the body? So it was very. It was very elusive to like make you think maybe the body's in there, or the original body's in there. I don't know. But it's really they to me the writing at that part just got a little like too open, and
yeah. And keep in mind, everyone, this is issue number 1.
One. Thank you.
Right. So there's I don't right. So no. I don't know if there was too much greatness on the book that I don't know who's. Anyways, so he turns around, he goes and becomes the doctor. He takes his identity and everything like that, goes into the hospital, helps someone there using his tech that he has to save someone's life. Everyone's like, "Oh, how'd you stop the bleeding?" Oh, I was like, "I'm Dr. Kurt Falconer. I'm the new doctor." Oh, okay, yeah, great. He even says to himself, "It's like, I don't know how long I keep this identity up before I get caught, but at least now I have a place to stay. I have money
for a couple of days, for a little while.
I'll figure it out." But he does have a good conscience. He's not that bad of a person. What I mean by that bad, I mean, he turns around. He does go right away as his first mission to find this, the doctor's daughter, because she's been kidnapped. And this brings us into issue 2, and real quick over issue 2, they bring in Major Damage, which is the is it Major Damage? Hold on, it's the villain. It's the villain from Captain Atom.
I think Major Damage. I think it is Major Damage.
Yeah, he's got very similar powers to Captain Atom, but he's a lot taller. His costume is like purple with gold on it, or more bronze. He too had a similar thing like Captain Atom in the DC universe, who has the all silver body at that point, because before he was more human, so he got bought over, and then they changed him when he got into DC from the other publishing company, Charleston Comics. So he's in there. Okay, fine. And they're able to get into a fight. So who comes in now is Green Lantern. So Kyle Reiner shows up, Green Lantern. They team up. He says, "Hey, Major Damage is here." And he's like, "Wait a minute. No. I've got reports." Like Kyle, Green Lantern, is saying, "I got reports that he died 4 months ago. Confirmed by 7 different people that he was like ripped apart in violent death." He's like, "Well, no, he's here. I see him. This is who he is. Okay, I'm going to help you fight him." And I'm okay with that, right? Because you need someone to help gateway his validity within the universe, in the DC universe. So they team up, and then you find out in the issue that it's not the Major Damage, it's a Major Damage. And what I mean by that is you find the girl that he's supposed to go and rescue, the daughter.
Right.
She knew her dad was a villain. She set up the whole thing to take over all the gangs in Vanity City and she came up with this plan that she got kidnapped to have her dad, like blackmailed into robbing a bank and killed.
Right.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. That's like some evilness right there. And then the guy she's hanging with is Mr. Synth, Synth.
Yep.
And he stands there, and every 24 hours, his mind is constantly morphing. So for 24 hours, he's a genius. And then the next 24 hours, he's a feeble-minded fool.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes up with these plans in his genius state and loses it, but he's also a shapeshifter. So he changed himself into Major Damage to kind of parlay that. Now,
actually, it's Major Force. I just realized.
Sorry, Major Force.
You know what?
My apologies.
I was the same thing from. I wasn't sure. I just want to check.
My apologies. Major Force. So the thing with Major Force is how this ties into Green Lantern. Even though it's random, it's still kind of cool because Major Force in the Green Lantern, when Kyle became Green Lantern in his early issues, Major Force found Kyle's girlfriend, killed Kyle's girlfriend in his apartment, and then stuffed her remains in the freezer. Now, when I say freezer, I'm not talking a big freezer you have in your garage. I'm talking the little compact freezer that stands above your fridge, or if you're fancy, at the bottom of your fridge, right, in your kitchen. So Kyle lives in an apartment as an artist. Above, he's got a normal standard freezer with got the little box part above his fridge, the little freezer. Turned around and he stuffed her remains in the freezer. So when Kyle comes in, he sees blood all over the place. He's not sure. He sees the freezer door not closing properly. When it opens, she's been torn apart and graphic. So that was why Kyle does not like Major Force and has a major hate on for this character. So this is why Kyle is there. So I understand if you're bringing in Major Force, why Kyle will be there. He's a Green Lantern, but he wants revenge. Right. And they do talk about that and establish that in the book, and it goes on. So I think it's still okay. They can still save themselves, but then it goes on. So here's my thing with the overall, not to go drag it out issue by issue. I like the character, right? I like the concept because it seems that you find out later on, like issue 5 and 6, so in issue number 2 or 3, he finally gets his name from and they even make jokes about it, saying, yeah, don't worry about it. Let the newspaper give you a name. When they give you a name, if there's 2 columnists give you a name, that's the name you should go with. And they show those 2 columnists and they're saying, hey, we should call him this. No, we should call him that. What about Aztek? Well, he looks more like an Inca warrior. No, but we're gonna call him Aztek. We're gonna spell Aztek, Aztek. Aztek. Yeah, that's cool. It's easy to say, we like it. And he's like, well, I like the name because his helmet makes him look like an old school like Aztek or truly Inca warrior.
Right.
You find out that the Q Society is based off of a Mayan god, which will fall into the Incas. And don't ask me to say the name. It starts with a Q. It's a long name. Yeah. It's a god of light.
Yeah, I was about to try it. Kuzal, Quazal. Yeah, you know what? I'm out. Deuces.
Okay, look, this is the podcast, Q. Right?
Right.
We can tell you, but don't ask us to say that one. Blah, blah, blah. So he and that's where the Q Society starts off, the fight off these dark forces. All right, got it. I like that aspect that they're bringing in other gods, because every gods we know about in Marvel, DC usually stick to certain genres, right? Greek / Roman, Norse, right? Okay, these are the gods and of course the new gods in DC. So we're going DC, but those are descendants in a way of the Norse gods,
right?
So now bringing in another pantheon of gods and how it relates into the world today. I'm like, this is cool. I'm open for it. This is a great concept. But then it seemed like we were always getting multiple storylines that didn't seem to continue in the following issue, even though they promised they would.
Right.
So in the comic books, you figure Blood Type would be a recurring character. No, Blood Type was dead to be dead.
Yeah.
Blood Type's girlfriend is there. And you find out her backstory, and you realize that Blood Type's girlfriend, Death Doll. So Death Doll. But you find out that Death Doll and Blood Type were really heroes at one point. It was like Liberty, it was America and Miss Liberty, something like that. They did a really quick flashback. and something happened. It kind of turned them into hardcore heroes where they're killing people. And then things kind of fell apart. But then you find out that, Death Doll was more the psychotic one over Blood Type, and Blood Type was pretty psychotic.
Right.
So she goes after him. And in a fluke accident, she ends up getting killed because Aztek handles a situation with compassion. These guys turn around and they're trying to mug an old man. He gets in there and they're like, hey, look, you can punch us, you can hit us, but not in the face or this and that. And he goes, look, you know what? You guys are robbing this old guy. Here. He's like, hook him over to help the villains. You know what, guys? Here's $115 of my own money. We're good. Now we're going to go back and give back the guy his stuff. All right. So now nothing was violently resolved. You've got money because you're robbing people to get more money. Go about your business. Don't rob nobody for the rest of the night. And the old person has their thing. Now, of course, this was a setup, but you see his mentality is not to come in punching first like a madman.
Right.
He
No guns
settled it
blazing.
peacefully.
Yeah.
And of course, for him, he doesn't need much money. So he's got the salary of a doctor. So here's $115. I'm good. That's all I had on me as cash. I'm out. The costume itself is nice, but, and I'll get back to, so when I say it's like double writing, they never seem to, I wanted them to talk more about the death. So he doesn't have recurring villains. That was my main thing. Every time that you think someone would be a reoccurring villain for him, that person gets killed off.
Got written off. Yep.
You need a proper rogues gallery with any type of hero. I would have been fine if they would have showed this so-called Shadow God using agents of his own to try to stop Aztek and let him work up to finally getting to him. That wasn't the case. In this 10-issue run, we see Green Lantern, the Kyle.
Yeah.
Green Lantern.
For that.
Yeah. We see Batman.
We see Joker.
Yeah.
We see Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
We see the Daily Planet. Like I was saying earlier. Was there anybody else that was noticeable?
You see Parasite,
right?
Superman villain Parasite. Superman's in it.
Right.
At
least the boots of him kind of scenario.
Yeah. And so here's the true story. The true story is Aztek was raised by the Q Society, trained. He gets out there, he runs into another person that was trained and worked with his dad. He thought the Q Society told Aztek that his dad died off in battle and he's now being raised to kind of take on that mantle. That helmet has been passed down from generation to generation from the very first person that took that mantle up to stop that avatar of the Q God from years ago.
Right.
So they got it, they've advanced it, they put technology with it. He puts on the helmet and then with certain frequencies, it now puts on the rest of his armor, which is cool. I like that aspect.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. You never see the Shadow God himself. You just hear mention of him. So when he runs into one guy, says, hey, take off your helmet. I should have been the successor, not you. By the way, the Q Society killed your dad. And he's like, excuse me? He goes, they killed your dad because your dad came from the same training you did, fell in love with a woman here in the city, and gave birth pretty much to you. They didn't like that idea because he started kind of going against them. So I, as a second in command, was hired to kill him off. I didn't do it, but I was maimed, but they still had your dad killed off. I brought back the helmet. They didn't give it to me now. They gave it to you. I'm trying to save you from kind of sacrificing yourself from, what you need to do. So now he's starting to think, is like, wait a minute, I found out you guys killed my dad instead of use my dad. Or my dad died in battle. So there's a lot of stories and lies that were involved. And of course, what really got me was, like I said, issue 9 into issue 10. So when they're coming down to the end of the series, I know it kind of jumped, but I just wanted to point out that in issue 9, at the end of it, Aztek is flying around. He's like, okay, I got to go and do something. They see him on the news. This woman is talking to her daughter-in-law about some marital issue, and she sees a TV and her eyes get all wide. And then the panel actually says, next issue, Aztek's mom and the Justice League. I'm like, okay. And I went through, and that was issue 10. And issue 10, you read it, the Justice League's there. So it kind of jumps that he's already joined the Justice League. He's there. No mention of his mom. None. I see Kyle. You see this whole sequence where it seems like he's the last warrior because Darkseid has defeated the Justice League. You find out it's a training in the Watchtower. So this is when during Grant Morrison was doing his run on Justice League. Right? And his run on Justice League was phenomenal. And if you remember, yes, Aztek does join the Justice League. At one point, Aztek decides to quit the Justice League because he finds out that the Q Society, because Batman, when he was in there, starts looking into it, the Q Society was sending out, I guess, recruiters, as you would call them, going to anyone rich person in society saying, hey, we've got this organization. We're going to fight this dark person. We have a warrior being trained. We have all this technology, but it's expensive. We need funding. And they went to Thomas Wayne to ask him if he wanted to donate to this cause. And Thomas was kind of shaken up, but he said no. Alfred gave this whole kind of backstory with Batman while on the case with Aztek. The Aztek was not privy to this information, this conversation, right? Because he was already out the vehicle. Then you find out randomly Lex Luthor is part of the society. And Lex Luthor is manipulating people to say, don't worry about it. I've worked it in such a way that this guy is going to get the greatest press. And this is going to happen for this guy. I'll have it that, by such and such a time, he will be in the Justice League and he'll be working alongside Superman. So that Lex was trying to use something manipulative with the Q Society to inadvertently get at Superman. That's his main target all the time. Now, it didn't happen in his own series. It happened later on during the Rock of Ages storyline within the Justice League that Aztek finds out that Lex Luthor was a donating member of the Q Society. So he had to quit. Okay.
Yeah, I like I said, like you said, there's a lot of unanswered holes, unanswered subplots that was brought up and then just disappeared. I don't know. It's the concept of him being there and being funded by Lex Luthor is a major thing. I can completely understand that. But it's to show that, again, Lex is a manipulative in any form and fashion. They want trying to find that connection. Like we said, they brought in Kyle, they brought in Superman, or at least they're bringing the concept of Superman, Batman, Joker is in there. And I'm like, it's like a hard reach to try to spin off this character into someone else that we know. And it was, to me, it was with Lex Luthor was like you said once before, low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't have been. We could have just had him go on his own, start his own rogue gallery. Not every time he meets somebody, it always ends up in, him dying. That villain dying. To me, that was like, it's a consistent waste, because now you're going to make the picture that every time someone fights Aztek, they're going to die. I don't want to fight Aztek. Well, then, yeah, you keep the city safe, but people fear for their life. He now turns into a bad vigilante. And the good thing, I will say one thing about the vigilante aspect of it is that the Q Society initially did not like the fact of him being labeled as a superhero. No. They thought it would be too much of a distraction in that regard. So, again, the good press out of Lex Luthor type of thing, you hear earlier on that the board actually were okay with him keeping that superhero type of mantle, that they realized, it might actually be some good out of it. And we'll see how it goes from there. And now you realize that the board / Lex had been manipulating that from the jump. So there's a lot of shell games that's been played in this particular character that was like, I think it was just a lot too early, or they had a lot, but they didn't really tie it in even half. You could at least tie it in half and left a couple, keep a lead in the ear, like, I wonder about those. But majority wasn't tied in properly. So it's like,
nope. As saying goes, stay on target, on target, right? So, and I mean, look, at the end of it, so it didn't even wrap up in Aztek's storyline. Yes, I know there was another person that took on the mantle of Aztek that she was carrying on, but Uno, we're really talking about Uno's story arc, and Uno's story arc came down, in I think it was the Rock of Ages, because at one point he thought that Darkseid would have been that god he had to fight, right. And then during one of the, I had my notes here. During, so he's with the Justice League, he leaves the Justice League, he's doing his own thing, and then he kind of gets brought back in to help the Justice League out one big fight, and you realize it's battling against this planet-destroying machine, Megadon, and during this, and then this machine was apparently made by the Dark God, so it was made by Tizkatpoka, right? That cult that they were referring to all the time, it was the Dark God, seemed to make this world-destroying machine. So Aztek gets blinded. He sacrifices himself during this fight, which allows Superman to destroy the machine, during the World War III story arc that was going on in Justice League. So that was what he was there. He did his purpose.
Right.
Up to that point, I think there could have been a lot more done with it. Yes, the helmet now gets taken up by, the mantle gets taken up by another person. She finds his helmet. She takes on the role of Aztek. And he had a lot of cool powers. So, he was a peak human physical and mental conditioning, right? The ancient helmet and armor, powered by 4-dimension mirror, drives, and it gave him flight, infrared, X-ray vision, invisibility, intangibility, body heat camouflage, entrapment nest, plasma beams, density manipulation, and it added on to his levels of his human peak levels, makes him stronger, faster, the whole 9 yards. And the helmet was able to feed direct information directly into his brain. So that time you would hear that the helmet be talking to him, or you hear voices. And he even referred to it saying that these were the past warriors who wore this helmet. But I was trained a certain way to not let this overwhelm me and keep the helmet. So if someone else put on the helmet without training, it would actually burn them out. So I'm not sure how the new person, when she took over, how she got past that. But that's what was established in the original series. I always wanted the original series to focus on Aztek. I mean, it got distracted with so many people coming in. He should have gotten to the city. I would have forgiven the loophole with him becoming a doctor. It does find out that the society finds, the hospital he works at, the director, she finds out that he really is Aztek. And he's like, oh, you knew? Because he's going to reveal his identity. She's like, yeah, I knew. It's like, how'd you know? He's like, you didn't even try to change your voice. I knew. Right. And then he takes off the helmet. He collapses at the end of the issue. And then the next issue opens up with her and him, and he's in an operating room. And you think he's at the hospital. No, you find out they're in the Andes Mountains at the Q Society's headquarters. And they're like, don't worry about it. Anyone that would have had privy information knowing that Kurt was Aztek, all that information's been erased. How'd you do it? Don't worry about it. We've modified all his personnel records. We've done all this stuff. Everything's been taken care of. Okay. So he goes back and he's looking around and no one recognizes that he's Aztek anymore, to the point where the director, she turns around and she's like, look, it seems like there's a fog over their head. Like, what do you mean? She goes, watch. And in the hallway with all the doctors, she yells out, Kurt is Aztek. The janitor, other doctors, people are all there, but they kind of stop with, huh? And they go back and they keep working. It's like they brainwashed the whole building.
So that's a wonderful loophole, that a subplot that would be great that we find out more about, because how did you actually achieve that? Because you're now saying that, like you said earlier, Vanity City is supposed to be worse than Gotham. Everybody and their mother who does read and understand comics know of Batman and know of how Gotham is. So you have something that's worse than Gotham? We need to worry about that. We need to inquire. So again, he woke up on the stretcher. And then you see him later on just kind of like walking, like there was too far of a distance between each action. So yeah, everybody could probably hear from my particular, our voices, but me, it's just like, it was, as Barry said earlier, it's very choppy. There's things that could have been just much more smoothed out, but I digress.
Absolutely. So when I'm saying, I'm just pointing out these points. I'm not trying to nitpick, but I'm pointing out these are points that we picked up when we read the series. And this is how it came across to us. So, Rod said before we even started actually hitting record and doing this, and he made a great point. If they were to bring this character back, they got to do a couple of things. They got to retool the story. Completely. You got to smooth it out. Either he's a warrior in there and let's just deal with what it should have been. Dealing with the Dark Warrior coming. He's from a warrior cult. It seems that the could be a little bit corrupt. Let's stick with the background of what happened to his dad, his mom, what happened to the mom. She recognized him, obviously, or recognized the costume. How did a mom lose track of her own son? Okay, let's go with that. Deal with the
Completely.
Dark God coming, his training, so forth. Don't throw every random person that's not being used within the DC universe and go that way. Now, it being corrupt and then reaching out to Lex Luthor, knowing his reputation, yeah, it's an interesting twist. I can go with that, but I don't need to see Superman in there. I didn't need to see Batman in there. You know,
Right.
I didn't even need to see, give him a proper rogues gallery. Without a rogues gallery, the hero will never go past a certain point.
Correct.
So I think that's where it really suffered from, because it just never seemed to continue. It was like Batman when George Clooney was doing Batman. At one point, it's like, Bruce, I want to get married. Oh, you want to get married? Oh, wait a minute, there's a bat symbol. And then we never see that girl again who was supposed to be his fiance or wanted to be his fiance, but he was dating her for a long time during the George Clooney run. So that was his longtime girlfriend. They even established that, and then she's gone. So you're supposed to talk about his mom. You didn't talk about his mom. You just totally skipped right over that. Those are the things that had me interested when I wanted to know more. You're bringing in a different pantheon that's outside of Norse and Greek. All for it. You've got this guy in there, and you realize they're supposed to be warrior monks. I want to know more about the Q Society.
Right.
Didn't find out. When they put in cool societies and they use them well, and you have that one person rebelling trying to bring down a society, I always think that's a cool thing. We've talked about Azrael on this show before, and the Society St. Drumus. Come on, everyone loves a Court of Owls when that came about, right? Granted, that's all DC stuff. Done well, it can be done well. When they did the whole Judas contract and all the societies checkmate and all of them were fighting, that was awesome. This could have been better if they just stay one lane. You can't drive a car in two lanes simultaneously. Don't Tokyo drift it. Don't Tokyo drift it and try to be in both. So this and the thing is, the character's been around because he was in obviously his own comic book. He was in Justice League. He was in like a Justice League comic book. He was on TV on Justice League Unlimited. You see him in the background. Yep. So he makes appearances in there. And then he makes appearances in different video games, right? So Scribblenauts Unmasked, the DC Comics adventure. Okay. You see his battle suit. Okay. So you see him there. Just because we've not been fans of how this kind of got executed, not because of not the character, but because of how it was executed. And that's what I'm curious to find out is more of why it got so much. It seemed like, it had two creators, but why was it going back and forth? It seems issue to issue without kind of reading the previous notes. I still want to see this character again, because he was there as a warrior. He was there to sacrifice himself to stop the darkness, to save billions. He knows he's going to die and took that role. That's what he bred for. Namaste, let's do this. Okay. I like his aspect of it, that it wasn't always violence first in situations. I think they wanted to go someplace with certain things, or maybe they just did it and didn't think of it. One to me was Vanity City. He said when he got into Vanity City from issue 1, it seems like there was a certain energy or presence in there that made it really dark. Was that artificially done? Created, right? If you look at, I can't remember his last name, Jim Alster, he was doing the Power of Shazam comic book years ago.
Okay.
And when you were dealing with Captain Marvel in that universe, and you go back to Fawcett City, it always seemed that Fawcett City seemed to be a little bit more in the past with their values and so forth. So the car models looked a little bit older, even though it was present day. People dressed like they were, in the 50s still, but they were still in contact and would still go and travel to Gotham and Metropolis, so that was a city. And then you found out in one of the issues that a spell was cast over that town to keep it in that kind of time period, but it was to the point that it would change gradually. So they would have cell phones, they would have, all this stuff, but they were still kind of retro in the kind of car they would drive and how the style of the house would look like. That was normal. And that explained it, that there's a spell cast over that city. I'm like, all right, I can go with that. So knowing that you're sending, his mom lives in Vanity City, the character was sent to Vanity City. What about Vanity City that was drawing these characters there? Was the evil supposed to hit there? Is there something that's drawing them? Obviously, there's something in the air that he's mentioned that seemed like could have been artificial. So I know I'm always saying, hey guys, you got to go and support the books and read it. And it's sure, it's like 10 issues. You want to see what we're talking about? Go ahead and read it. I would really go more with the Rock. Read issue 1, just to kind of read issue 1 and 1 to 3, easy, just to get an understanding of the character. Then go over to Grant Morrison's Justice League, where they dealt with it, Rock of Ages, a World War III storyline. Read those; those are enjoyable. And you're like, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. And no one's really talked about this character. So like that's my point. What's your point before we fan cast this, Rod?
Well, my point is that the character himself is he's different, and it's a good thing because he's coming out from being a warrior. He's coming out being a warrior person, but he's coming with a compassionate heart. He's basically violence is more his second and third option. He's trying to figure out what he can do to parlay, have this conversation, or just to defuse and to settle the situation without having to result to that. It shows that, for one, he has training in the sense of not social skills. Like the social skill aspect of interacting with people, but at least knowing that, okay, there is always a second way. There's always another way to resolve an issue. It doesn't always have to be fisticuff first. You don't have to pull out the guns. You don't have to be yelling back at each other. Okay, what's the situation? What's happening? So with that, he's a smart individual, because even when he was with in an episode when he was talking with Batman initially made him feel, or made him make the statement like, don't, if you're thinking I'm stupid or anything like that, I'm not sensible of what the situation is. But then towards the end of that, Batman says, oh, no, I'm starting to recognize you're a very intellectual individual. You're going to do good. You still got some stuff to do, but you're going to do good.
Yeah.
So showing that, at least you're seeing that aspect coming from the Dark Knight himself,
the great detective,
and he's realizing, like, okay, this young man has the potential. He has something there. A little rough with the edges, but he has something there. We can work with that. It just shows to me that this character is that nice, warm-hearted individual who is there to protect the city. He's there technically to be prepared and stand ready for the Shadow God to return. But in the meantime, I can't let people suffer. If people are having issues around me, I can't just, that doesn't seem like a Shadow God type of event. I'm not going to put on the helmet. I'm going to go and get a pizza. No, he's going to actually say, if something could be done, let me see what I can do. And I like that with that aspect. It's although a lot of characters come with that type of MO, that's what they want to do.
Right.
Normally, it's always seemed to be in a different lane. This one is clearly making it seem like from the jump, I'm coming in with a good heart. And as I think about it, I'm trying to recall if I've barely seen him having any particular any pages or anything like that where he was coming out rough. Like that's what I'm thinking. Like that's what I'm saying. His approach was always coming with the olive branch, coming in. Let's see what we can figure out first.
Yep.
Oh, now you don't want to. Okay, I gave you the opportunity. Braps. Oh, okay. Yep. But you can't say I didn't give you an opportunity in the beginning. Literally,
nope, he never came in swinging guns first, or guns blazing first, as the expression goes. So I agree with you on that. And going back to that Batman comment, you're right, because Batman even said it's nice that there's he goes, he's nice, he's really smart. There's not a lot of heroes that get into this business that have a brain in their head, and it's refreshing to see that that's why you're going to do well. Wow. Okay. So here we are. We are done. That's our thing about Aztek. We're going to go fan cast it still. So here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I see a lot of shows have been canceled by the CW. You've heard it the past 2 episodes. We're going to go through it again. So CW, you canceled Naomi, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, Legacies, Roswell. I know there's more on there. I saw the list kind of growing, and the only one pretty much still standing, or ones that have ended, is kind of Flash. And I know you're kind of going with new stuff. Here, let me help you out, CW. I'm gonna make this real easy because y'all like DC properties. This is a DC property.
Yes, let's go.
right? Don't make it multiverse. No, no, no,
Nope.
no, 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 no. You just have to go with the key points of Aztek, the Ultimate Man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring in the Inca god, the Mayan gods.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring those in. That there gives you diversity because you can still have your secret society, the Q society, and have them mixed with authentic, actors of that nationality and background.
Right.
Now we know Aztek in the book is portrayed as a 6'2", whatever, blonde hair, blue eye guy. That's usually the way they do it in comic books. Doesn't mean you got to stay that way because you don't.
Right.
So I'm saying CW, you need to do property.
Okay.
You guys have the writing. You have a lot to do with. You can probably pick out the faults, go about that, smarten it up a little bit so it really makes more sense.
Yep.
You can still have him as a doctor. So there's your background. You can still have him in the city. There's your background. You can still come with a way that he's a warrior, even though he's been cast as a superhero, but he doesn't come out swinging and punching first. Right? That fits your whole thing. And then the whole aspect of him trying to understand social etiquette because he was trained how to fight. But, as one of his villains put it off, is like, man, you've never been with a woman before. He's like, you might be able to fight me, but you've never taken off a bra strap before, have you? Have that convenient innocence. If I'm going to pick a guy who would play this, I would bring back somebody and give him a full-time job that you guys have worked with before. Ooh. You keep bringing him back. You tease us with him. I'm going with Robbie Amell.
Woo!
Robbie Amell, who played Firestorm, Deathstorm, pops it here and there in Flash. Just give him the series. Just Aztek would be the series he would do. Now, we don't have to have him blonde. No. Because he comes from you don't know what his dad looked like. We're assuming his dad is kind of a Mayan, Inca, that kind of nationality background, how you can trace his lineage. Right. And you can make his mom white, so you can make him mixed. Okay, fine. Robbie Amell as Uno. And bring him in and let him have to fight the Dark God. Do not need the crossover with the Supermans, the Batmans, Green Lanterns. No. You could still have him cross over with your existing CW Arrowverse characters when needed to be. But Robbie Amell.
Very good. I was, and I like Robbie Amell. I do like Robbie Amell. So that's a very good one. Now I was thinking more of just doing this. I was thinking more of a movie aspect of it. So I wasn't even thinking of a TV show. I was thinking more of a movie aspect. And I was just doing, we will build from there and just see how the story goes. Because, again, it comes back to you're right. There's a lot, you need to do a lot of cleaning up in the storyline of what you're going to do with his history and where, how you're going to portray him, monetize him and, monetize him and everything like that. Monetize him, monetizing him, for today's, values and stuff along that line. Right. So I was thinking more definitely of at least a 3-part movie type of scenario. So I wasn't going for a 3-part movie because you actually brought the point. Let's have the first one about him, finding who he is. Then finding the second one, him and the society. The second one is about the society and his parents. Now we can get an understanding about that. And then by that time you slowly having the little hints, the little gems from each, the first and the second, leading into the third, which will now bring the Shadow God to come into effect. And now we can tie it up at that point of, it could be over a 3 or 4 year span, of the storyline of it, whatever the case would be. At least by the third one, you can have, this is originally why he was here. He put on the armor. He was given the armor because of the helmet and everything, because there was a potential threat coming down the pipeline. So I would have gone with that. So that's where my head was going with the movie aspect. So with that now, I was going to go, since this is a movie, I'm going to go with someone who can, take these type of chops and who's accustomed to doing action movies in that regard. I was going to go with none other than the man they call Ryan Gosling.
Oh,
I was going, you brought up a good point in regard, at least, tall and blonde and everything. That's where I'm going. But you're right. In that particular culture, it doesn't mean he has to be that. But Ryan to me could handle this because for one, he was, action wise, if we're gonna go with detective and have that action wise kind of scenario, Blade Runner. So when he was playing Blade Runner 2014,
Yeah.
49,
Yes.
he was there as well. You know what I mean? Now,
Nice.
I wanted to have that, the what you call it, the nuances of being someone who's just like a person out of time. That's
Right,
really
kind of
what
out
it
of
is.
touch a little bit. Not out of time,
Out
but
of
I get what
touch,
you're saying. Yeah.
out of time, out of touch of what really is going on. Although
Right.
he may be book smart, but he's not people smart. He just doesn't know how to interact. Right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
he had that soft type of touch, you know. And I'll admit it, I never watched this movie, but you know, everybody always talks about The Notebook, and so you know he has the soft side, so he knows how to portray it. I've never watched it, but I've heard people go off about The Notebook. I've seen enough commercials, I've seen enough memes about it, so I'm gonna take it that there's a soft touch in the Notebook type of world. Ryan may have done that, so I believe Ryan will be able to just pull into that. We don't need a lot, Ryan. Just give us a little, not a lot, but we just lean more into the Blade Runner side of it, and we're good from there. So that's where I was going with Mr. Ryan Gosling.
Nice.
Hoo-yah.
Nice. I like that. I like that because you know what? And I'll say this, for even if he does it as a three movie arc like you have it set up, even if at the end of the movie he ends up dying in the end of the movie, the helmet gets there, you could have still the other girl turn around and find the helmet. Nayla, or Nylia. You can find it and just leave it as a cutscene.
And leave it as a cutscene. Completely.
Yeah.
The story is about him living through the helmet. It's the helmet really is what it is.
Yeah.
It's the same. Replace the helmet with the emerald ring from Green Lantern.
Yes.
It's never really saying as the body, it's the emerald ring. What you do with it. That's why they have 3-4 different lanterns.
Yeah, 4 different lanterns just for Earth, even though each one other sector has only one. Got it. Yeah, I like it. Cool. Nope, that makes sense to me. I like that. So, I mean, you guys could chime in on this and let us know in your comments. You know, are you more Ryan Gosling as a movie, or are you Robbie Amell as a CW thing? So let us know what you think about this Aztek character. Don't look at the little nuances that happen in issue to issue. Look at the big picture and see how it is. Give us your feedback. We want to know. So subscribe, share, tell your friends, spread it around. And I think this is probably the only video I've ever seen will be on Aztek, you know, the Ultimate Man. Why is he the Ultimate Man? Well, we'll find out. I don't know.
Well, there you go. I mean, you know, again, and those are other aspects as well. We don't even know why are you labeled as the Ultimate Man? Like, why are you better than? How do you believe you're better than the Bats? How do you feel that you're better than the Bats? We need to find
get more
out.
with that society. So that is that. On that note, thank you everyone for tuning in to Iconis Podcast on Aztek, the Ultimate Man. On my side, as usual, DJ Rod C.
It's me, people. Let's do it.
Right on. I'm Barry 3D. And remember, this whole world was created by a pencil, a piece of paper, and lots of imagination. Keep on dreaming. Route.
Route.
Ultimate Man away.